if you want to build the fastest growing, the most dominant tech company in the world, a company that literally dictates the future of human infrastructure, the data says you should definitely not drop out of college at 20.
Right, yeah. You shouldn't be coding in a dorm room at 3 a.m. fueled by energy drinks.
No energy drinks.
I mean, maybe some, but according to the actual hard numbers, you should actually wait until you are 45 years old.
Which is wild,
Hmm.
because that statistic single-handedly destroys the foundational mythology of Silicon Valley.
Oh, completely. We spent, 20 years glorifying the kid in the hoodie who breaks all the rules?
Yeah, the classic startup trope.
Exactly. But when you look at the raw data from MIT, the U.S. Census Bureau, and the Harvard Business Review, the people who actually build these civilization-scale companies are seasoned veterans.
And tearing down that dorm room myth is really just the beginning of what we're doing today in this deep dive.
It's a huge piece of it, but yeah, there's so much more.
Right, because we are looking at this highly provocative manifesto. It was published on June 17, 2026, by Paramendra Kumar Bhagat.
And the title just sets the stage perfectly. It's called Netizen. Why Combinator is high school, there is need for a university.
So the author is looking straight at Y Combinator, which, let's be real, is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the startup world.
Without a doubt.
And arguing that while YC fundamentally democratized early-stage company building, its core structure is entirely incapable of launching the massive planetary-scale companies humanity requires for the next century.
Which is an incredibly bold claim to make. I mean, Y Combinator is the machine that gave us Airbnb, Stripe, Coinbase.
Yeah, absolute giants.
To say that machine is only high school requires some serious evidence.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to tear into the gears of this argument right alongside you, the listener.
We have to rip open the unvarnished data of YC's historic track record first.
Yeah, and then we're going to break down the author's fascinating contrast between the Christopher Columbus model of discovery and the Neil Armstrong model of engineering.
That metaphor is so good. And finally, we are going to look at the literal mechanical blueprint for what the author calls an accelerator city.
Like an actual university designed to spawn trillion-dollar economic suns.
Exactly. But to even begin evaluating the claim that we need a university, we have to rigorously audit the high school.
Right, we need to look at what Y Combinator has actually achieved over the past 2 decades.
We really have to separate the PR halo from the raw venture capital data.
So let's get into those numbers. The source material pulls together overlapping data sets from Lenny's newsletter, a venture fund called Rebel Fund, Failery, and YC's own public databases.
And the scale we are talking about here is just industrial.
It really is. As of mid-2026, YC has funded roughly 5,000 to 5,700 companies.
And if you extrapolate their recent batch sizes, that number pushes up to 6,400.
That is an absolute assembly line of startups.
It is. But tracking the outcomes of 6,000 private companies is notoriously difficult because venture capital is a game of hidden variables.
How so?
Well, when a public company fails, the stock goes to zero, the doors close, and everyone knows, right?
Right, it's public record.
But private startups often suffer a much quieter demise. This is why the failure metrics the author highlights are so compelling.
The official data suggests YC's overall failure rate, like companies that are completely inactive or legally dead, sits around 15 to 25%.
Which is?
Wait, 15 to 25%? That seems suspiciously low. The standard rule of thumb I always hear is that 90% of startups fail.
You're right. The broader tech startup failure rate is typically cited between 70 and 90%.
So YC's baseline survival rate is orders of magnitude better than the industry average?
It is, but we have to dissect what survival actually means in this ecosystem. Failery and other data trackers point out that failure in venture capital operates on a spectrum.
Okay, a spectrum. Meaning what?
Well, you have the official shutdowns, yes. But you also have the zombie companies.
The Walking Dead. They aren't growing, they aren't dying, they're just paying server costs and existing in purgatory.
Exactly. They're generating just enough revenue to cover payroll, but they have completely lost the exponential growth curve required by venture capital.
So for a fund, a zombie company is still a failure.
Right, because it traps capital and time without generating a return. Then you also have the acqui-hires.
Which is a massive phenomenon in the YC ecosystem.
Huge. A company realizes their product isn't gaining traction, so a larger tech giant buys them out for a few $1 million.
Essentially just to absorb their engineering talent.
Exactly. It's a soft landing.
The founders get a nice job at Google or Meta. The early investors get their money back, maybe a tiny bit more. And nobody has to write the word bankrupt on their resume.
But it certainly isn't the billion-dollar outcome they pitched on demo day.
Right. And the text note's an important caveat about time horizons here, too.
Yeah, if you look at the oldest YC batches, like the first 17 cohorts ever run, the inactive rate approaches 40%.
Because time is the ultimate solvent in venture capital.
It really is. A startup might survive for 5 years on initial hype and seed money, but it takes 4 to 9 years for the true structural flaws of a business to be exposed by the market.
Gravity eventually does its job.
Always.
Let's pivot from the failures to the absolute monsters that YC has produced, because this is where the model justifies its existence.
Yeah, out of those 5,000 plus companies, YC has birthed between 82 and 101 unicorns.
Privately held companies valued at over $1 billion.
Right, and that translates to roughly 1.6 to 4.5% of their total portfolio.
That's a massive percentage in VC terms.
It is. If we take the upper middle range, say 4 to 5%, YC is pumping out unicorns at nearly double the rate of the average seed stage venture fund, which sits around 2.5%.
So we are talking about category-defining behemoths here. Stripe revolutionizing payments, Airbnb altering global real estate and hospitality, DoorDash rewiring local logistics.
But, and this is crucial, valuation on paper is very different from liquid cash.
Right, because the ultimate goal of any startup is an exit getting acquired for a massive premium or going public through an IPO.
And the data here is wild. Roughly 10% of the YC portfolio achieves some form of exit.
Though projections suggest that could climb toward 40% as the younger cohorts mature.
Sure, but the IPO numbers. Out of 5,000 companies, only about 17 have actually gone public.
That is 0.3%.
Yeah, going public requires a level of organizational maturity, regulatory compliance, and sustained market dominance that is incredibly rare.
So the vast majority of successful YC exits are acquisitions. Hundreds of these companies are just swallowed by larger players.
Which brings us to the core financial physics of Y Combinator, which the text emphasizes heavily.
The power law.
Yes. What's fascinating here is that the power law is the invisible hand of venture capital.
It dictates that in any given portfolio, a microscopic percentage of the investments will generate almost all the financial returns.
And the source material highlights a staggering metric for this. About 8% of the successful exits drive roughly 93% of the total cash returns to seed investors.
Wait, let's pause on that. 8% of the winners drive 93% of the cash.
It's heavy.
That means out of 5,000 companies, maybe a couple hundred are paying for the failures, the zombies, and the soft landings of all the rest combined.
Exactly. The total estimated valuation of the YC portfolio is somewhere between $600 billion and $1 trillion.
And that entire astronomical sum is propped up on the shoulders of a tiny fraction of outliers.
Because YC fundamentally cracked the code of the power law, startup investing by its very nature is a blind lottery.
You are betting on unproven founders, building unproven products for unproven markets.
Right, and YC turned that lottery into a system with a positive expectation.
But they only achieve that because of their elite filter at the top of the funnel, right?
Yeah, they have a 1 to 2% acceptance rate. They attract the most ambitious talent on earth.
They run them through an intense pressure cooker and leverage a massive alumni network to force serendipity.
Which naturally makes you question the core premise of this manifesto.
I was just thinking that if YC has literally manufactured a machine that generates trillion-dollar aggregate valuations, and they are already shifting their focus toward B2B and AI in their recent batches.
Why is the author attacking them?
Exactly. You don't take a sledgehammer to a printing press that is currently printing money.
Well, the author isn't arguing that the machine is broken. They're arguing that the machine was designed to build a very specific type of vehicle.
And humanity now needs to travel a completely different terrain.
Precisely. To explain this, the manifesto introduces this brilliant historical metaphor. It frames Y Combinator as the ultimate manifestation of the Columbus Way.
As in Christopher Columbus.
Yes. Think about it. He pitches the Spanish crown, gets some ships, sets sail aiming for India, gets completely, hopelessly lost in the Atlantic.
And accidentally bumps into an entirely new continent.
Right. The Columbus model is fundamentally built on serendipitous discovery.
You don't know exactly where you are going, but you have momentum.
Exactly. Now translate that to YC. You gather highly ambitious founders, you isolate them in a single geographic hub for 3 intense months, and you give them a beautifully simple directive.
Build something people want.
Yeah, you rely on the hacker ethos. You launch a minimal viable product, a rough draft of your idea, and you throw it out into the world.
You see how users interact with it, and you iterate furiously.
You rely on product-led growth. If the market doesn't like it, you pivot. Anything goes is the operative mindset.
And we really have to acknowledge how breathtakingly effective that mindset has been for software.
Oh, absolutely. If you are building an app or a digital marketplace, serendipity is a massive competitive advantage.
You can launch a photo-sharing app, realize people only care about the filters, and pivot your entire company model over a weekend.
The ultimate Columbus story in the YC canon is probably Airbnb.
Oh, the cereal boxes.
Yes, the founders were practically out of money. They ended up designing and selling novelty political cereal boxes.
Obama O's and Captain McCain's.
Just to keep the lights on while they figured out what their company actually was.
They were totally lost, iterating furiously to survive, and they stumbled into a global hospitality empire.
That is the absolute magic of getting lost.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The author draws a hard line here.
Yeah, because that anything goes philosophy sets founders up for catastrophic failure when they try to tackle planetary scale infrastructure problems.
You can stumble your way into a killer social media app.
Yeah.
You absolutely cannot stumble your way into a functioning space elevator.
Or a global carbon sequestration grid.
Right. You can't A/D test a nuclear fusion reactor in a garage.
No, you really can't.
If you are halfway through building a satellite array and you realize the market wants something else, you don't get to pivot.
Your rocket is already in orbit. Your runway is gone.
The text explicitly contrasts the fast horses produced by the Columbus era, those software unicorns, with the massive structurally defined challenges of today.
We are talking about deep technologies, climate adaptation, space industrialization, AI native energy systems.
These are not software products you can iterate on over a weekend.
Which is where the geographic constraints of the Columbus model start to look like a massive liability.
Yeah, the traditional accelerator model demands everyone relocate to a single hub, usually Silicon Valley, for 3 months.
To marinate in this concentrated echo chamber. But if you are building solutions for global energy abundance, a single zip code is basically useless.
Because planetary problems require planetary footprints from the very beginning.
Exactly. Think about the regulatory environments for biotechnology in the European Union. They are vastly different from those in the United States or Asia.
And hardware supply chains are fiercely regional and highly vulnerable to geopolitical shocks.
So if you try to solve these massive problems from a single room in San Francisco, treating internationalization and supply chain logistics as something you will figure out later when you raise your Series C.
The author argues you are already dead. You've essentially built a wooden ship for a deep space mission.
That's exactly it.
So, if Columbus is the past, the era of accidental software discovery, who is the avatar for the future?
How do we transition from hoping we bump into an empire to actually engineering one?
Right, and the manifesto provides the exact counter-metaphor for this, the Neil Armstrong paradigm.
The Apollo missions. The ultimate exercise in working backward from a destination.
Because going to the moon was not a serendipitous accident.
Not at all. It was a massive, defined, immovable target. It required precise, unforgiving engineering from the moment the first schematic was drawn.
It demanded rigorous global coordination, complex supply chains, and decades of institutional will.
Neil Armstrong didn't just fire a rocket into the sky and hope he hit something interesting.
Which shifts our entire vocabulary in the startup world. We are all familiar with the term unicorn, right? The billion-dollar startup.
But the author introduces a new concept for the Armstrong era. They call it a Solara.
And a Solara is not just a big company. The text defines it as a trillion-dollar scale economic sun.
Right. A unicorn disrupts an existing market. It takes a piece of the pie from legacy taxi companies or hotel chains.
But a Solara generates its own gravitational pull.
Exactly. It doesn't disrupt a market. It spawns entirely new industries.
It creates abundant energy or unprecedented capabilities that allow thousands of other businesses to exist in its orbit.
But, anyone can write trillion-dollar market opportunity on a pitch deck.
Right, so how does the author argue you actually construct a Solara mechanically?
The defining rule of the Armstrong paradigm is this. A future trillion-dollar company is a $0 trillion company on day one.
Wait, what does that actually mean in practice?
It means the company must be engineered for escape velocity before it ever leaves the launch pad.
So no guessing as you go.
None. The author is demanding a complete rejection of the vague, we will figure out the monetization and stale post-demo day mindset.
If you are building a Solara, your day one roadmap must account for global scale, complex regulatory navigation across multiple jurisdictions, resilient international supply chains, and cultural adaptation.
Because you cannot retrofit a rocket for orbital mechanics while it is already tearing through the atmosphere.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here, though. Look at this practically. Startups operate in environments of extreme uncertainty.
Sure.
Even if you are building something massive, the market shifts, supply chains collapse, new technologies emerge.
Yeah, things happen.
If you engineer a massive, rigid rocket aimed precisely at the moon, and 2 years into development, you realize the actual existential need is for a deep-sea submarine.
You are entirely sunk.
Right. Your rigid engineering killed you. Does this Armstrong model leave any room for the agility that actually keeps startups alive?
That is the exact friction point the manifesto addresses. The author isn't claiming that agility is dead.
Okay.
They are redefining where the agility happens. In the Armstrong model, agility happens at the micro level.
Meaning?
It's how you solve a specific metallurgical failure in the engine or how you route around a sudden supply chain bottleneck in Southeast Asia.
Ah, I see.
But the macro level destination achieving commercial viability for, say, biological reprogramming cannot change.
So if you pivot from curing cellular aging to building a consumer photo sharing app, you were never building a Solara.
Exactly. The Armstrong model requires founders who have such deep domain expertise that they know with absolute certainty that their final destination is structurally necessary for the future.
Even if the path to get there is chaotic.
Right. Which brings us to the most disruptive point in the entire source text.
If we are building Apollo missions instead of wooden ships, we have to look really hard at who we are putting in the captain's chair.
And the data the author brings forward absolutely torches the mythology of the 20-something founder.
Like we mentioned at the start, the media loves the narrative of the college dropout.
It's romantic, the young genius, unburdened by legacy thinking, coding in a dorm room, and casually inventing the future.
But the text cites a synthesis of data from MIT, the U.S. Census Bureau, and the Harvard Business Review that paints a starkly different reality.
Yeah. If you look at the top 0.1% of the fastest-growing, most impactful startups, the average age of the founder is around 45 years old.
45. That is a quarter of a century older than the media caricature.
Even if you restrict the data strictly to unicorns, the median age still hovers between 33 and 35.
The people building the most dominant companies on Earth are not fresh out of college. They are seasoned professionals.
So why do you think the tech industry itself clings so desperately to the myth of the young savant when their own data proves otherwise?
Honestly. Because the Columbus model inherently rewarded naivety.
How so?
Well, if you're building a consumer app, not knowing how things are usually done is actually a superpower.
Right. It allows you to break user interface rules and ignore established industry norms.
Exactly. You move fast and break things because the things you are breaking are just pixels on a screen.
But in the Armstrong era, ignorance of the rules is fatal.
Exactly. You can't move fast and break things when you are building orbital manufacturing facilities.
You break orbital mechanics, you create a debris field that traps humanity on Earth for a century.
By the time someone is 45, they have spent 20 years getting hit in the face by reality.
Oh, they have managed complex, fragile human networks. They have shipped physical products across borders.
They understand the grueling bureaucracy of international regulation.
They possess seasoned judgment.
And the author explicitly notes that while YC's recent AI cohorts have trended much younger, when it comes to executing complex, multi-decade moonshots, seasoned judgment consistently outperforms raw, youthful energy.
You are not just pushing code. You are building an institution capable of surviving planetary scale friction.
I want to talk directly to you, the listener, for a moment.
Yeah, this is important.
If you are sitting in your late 30s, your 40s, or your 50s, and you have watched the tech boom from the sidelines, feeling like you missed your shot because you aren't a 22-year-old hacker.
This data should fundamentally change how you view your career.
Exactly. You have not missed the launch window.
Yeah.
You are actually just entering your prime.
The specific domain expertise, the industry scars, the management skills you have accumulated, that is exactly the raw material the Armstrong era demands.
And that accumulated experience directly translates to how older founders handle the most neglected aspect of the startup ecosystem.
Which brings us to the author's sharpest critique of the high school mentality.
The absolute taboo around the concept of marketing.
In pure hacker circles, marketing is almost treated as a dirty word.
Right. It is viewed as a soft science for people who can't write code.
The reigning religion of the Columbus era is product-led growth.
The belief that if you build a fundamentally superior product, the world will magically beat a path to your door.
It is a beautiful romantic delusion.
Experienced founders know that a great product does not sell itself, especially not on a global scale.
And the author introduces a vital concept here: marketing escape velocity.
Let's break that down. What does marketing escape velocity actually look like for a Solara?
It is the critical threshold where your brand gravity, your distribution channels, your public narrative, and your ecosystem effects fuse together to create self-sustaining, compounding growth.
So it's not just running some ads.
No, not at all. The text argues that organic discovery, hoping a few influencers tweet about your product, is never enough to achieve trillion-dollar scale.
You must engineer your distribution with the same mathematical rigor you use to engineer your software.
The author states it must be a mandatory core engineering discipline from day one.
We are talking about mapping out multi-continent go-to-market strategies before you even launch.
It means understanding cross-border intellectual property laws so you don't get cloned and crushed in foreign markets.
It means aggressively shaping the global narrative around your technology.
Because if you fail to engineer that distribution, your groundbreaking climate tech will languish in obscurity, completely overshadowed by inferior technology that simply had a better distribution engine.
This feels like the glaring blind spot of the modern tech boom.
Oh, for sure.
Let's look at the AI explosion happening right now. Generative AI is driving the cost of writing functional code as close to zero as it has ever been.
Right.
In a world where anyone can spin up a complex software product in a weekend, doesn't distribution and marketing become literally the only real differentiator left?
That is a profound realization. When the product itself is commoditized by AI, the narrative and the distribution pipe become the entire business.
But the author takes it a step further for Solaras, don't they?
Yeah. If you are building a planetary scale company, say advanced biological reprogramming or synthetic food generation, you are not just selling a product.
You're selling a new reality.
Exactly. Let's unpack that. Biological reprogramming, essentially altering cellular aging or disease vectors.
You can't just launch that on an app store and rely on user reviews.
Precisely. You have to convince sovereign governments to alter healthcare regulations.
You have to convince massive, entrenched pharmaceutical lobbies not to destroy you.
You have to convince a deeply skeptical global population that your technology is safe and ethical.
You cannot achieve global regulatory buy-in for a paradigm shift using product-led growth.
It requires a masterclass in global narrative building. It is a planetary marketing challenge from the moment you incorporate the company.
And the author doesn't just theorize about this. They actually point to a real-time crisis of fragmented marketing happening inside Y Combinator right now.
And they issue a literal public invitation to consolidate.
This is where the manifesto pivots from philosophy into a live business pitch.
It is incredibly audacious. The text points out that currently, within the YC ecosystem alone, there are at least 140 different companies operating in highly fragmented niches of marketing, martech, and advertising AI.
140 different companies.
Yeah.
And none of them are building the whole puzzle. Some are just generating AI image creatives.
Some are focused purely on optimizing ad spend on TikTok.
Others are building synthetic audiences for market research or automating compliance for ad copy.
They are all playing the Columbus game. 140 little wooden ships sailing their own isolated routes, trying to dominate their tiny incremental slice of the marketing supply chain.
So the author looks at these fragmented companies and proposes what?
A massive, unified merger.
Really?
Yes. The author extends an open offer to bring these 140 distinct teams together, drop their individual borders, and merge into a single entity.
An AI marketing Solara.
Yes.
Okay, before we talk about the logistics of that, we need to explain it like I'm 5.
Sure.
What exactly does an AI marketing Solara look like if you combine 140 tools? The text mentions it would be an agentic platform.
Right.
What makes a platform agentic as opposed to just being a dashboard of 140 different software tools?
That is the crucial distinction. A dashboard requires a human to log in, pull data from the audience research tool, manually feed it into the creative generation tool, take those images and manually upload them into the ad spend optimizer, and then monitor the results.
The human is the bottleneck.
Right. An agentic platform means the software has agency. It acts as an autonomous intelligence.
So an agentic AI marketing Solara would essentially function as a global chief marketing officer that operates at light speed.
Exactly. You give the platform a macro objective. Launch this new climate tech product in Japan and Germany next month.
And then it just goes.
The platform autonomously formulates the cultural strategy, generates the localized creative assets, handles the cross-platform distribution, continuously monitors cultural resonance and regulatory compliance in real time, and optimizes the capital spend across continents.
It is a central intelligence for global distribution.
The economic logic of that is bulletproof.
Yeah.
A user doesn't want to manage 140 subscriptions to piece together a marketing campaign.
The ultimate winner in the AI space will always be the grand orchestrator, the platform that abstracts all that complexity away.
But the human element of this pitch is wild.
It really is. The author is publicly asking 140 founders, people who have been trained by the ecosystem, to fiercely protect their equity, to be the CEO, to worship their specific vision, to put their egos aside.
Drop your titles, pool your intellectual property, and let's build a trillion-dollar sun.
It forces them to adopt the Armstrong mindset.
If they stay isolated, they might build a $50 million company before getting crushed by a larger tech giant.
But if they merge, they don't just achieve marketing escape velocity for themselves.
No, they become the foundational distribution infrastructure that powers thousands of other deep tech portfolio companies.
They become the gravitational center of the new economy.
But practically speaking, you can't facilitate a 140-company mega merger and launch planetary-scale moonshots by just opening a Slack channel and having weekly Zoom calls.
Right. The author states YC is high school, and we need a university.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the literal physical blueprint for this university?
The manifesto provides a highly structural blueprint for what it calls accelerator cities.
Cities. Not a co-working space,
Yeah.
not a campus. Accelerator cities.
Yes. These are envisioned as purpose-built global ecosystems.
Okay.
The blueprint explicitly calls for a hybrid model. It starts with a central command campus, a concentrated hub where deep strategic decisions are made and core culture is forged.
But crucially, this command center is hardwired from day one to global satellite nodes located across the US, Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and Africa.
Let's walk through the mechanics of that hybrid model. If I am a 45-year-old founder building a global logistics company in this university, what does my day-to-day look like?
Well, your strategic headquarters might be at the command campus, allowing you to interface directly with elite capital allocators and policy architects.
But your engineering team might be operating out of the Eastern Europe node.
Exactly. Your supply chain managers are embedded in the Asian node, and your regulatory compliance team is stationed in the European Union node.
And all of these nodes feed real-world localized constraints back to the command center in real time.
You are a natively global organism from the moment of inception.
The blueprint also mandates deep integration with traditional academic institutions.
Why is that necessary? Isn't the whole point of a startup to escape the slow, bureaucratic pace of academia?
Remember the difference between software and deep tech. Building a photo-sharing app takes a few months.
Right.
Achieving commercial-scale carbon capture might require 10 years of fundamental materials science research before you can even build a prototype.
You cannot fund a 10-year research phase with standard venture capital, which expects a return in 7 years.
The university model bridges this gap. It partners directly with academic labs to handle the long-horizon R&D, and then provides the commercial infrastructure to instantly spin that research into a Solara the moment it is viable.
The author puts a very specific price tag on the first phase of this vision.
Right. Yes. The text outlines a financial ask. A $10 million initial raise at a $100 million valuation.
Which, in the grand scheme of venture capital, is actually a relatively modest seed round.
It is.
But wait, how do you build global accelerator cities with just $10 million? You couldn't even buy the land for a single campus in Silicon Valley with that. What are the actual mechanics of that capital?
The $10 million isn't for pouring concrete or buying real estate. It is the seed capital for the operational and digital infrastructure of the university.
So it's about the foundation.
Right. It funds the establishment of the Central Command Center, the creation of the proprietary curriculum, which focuses heavily on that day one global marketing and regulatory compliance, and the digital connective tissue that links the initial satellite nodes.
It is about building the brain of the university, not the brick-and-mortar shells.
The massive infrastructure capital follows once the framework is proven.
I want to make one thing crystal clear for anyone listening, because it is very easy to read a manifesto titled YC is High School and assume it is a hostile hit piece.
But the text explicitly states otherwise, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The author is adamant that the university is not designed to replace Y Combinator.
It is entirely complementary. High school is a necessary developmental stage.
YC is arguably the greatest institution on Earth for teaching founders how to move fast, find initial product market fit, and survive the chaotic early days.
So YC is where you go to learn how to build a highly efficient, incredibly fast engine.
But eventually you realize that a fast engine is useless if you don't have roads.
Exactly. This new university, the Accelerator City, is where you go to learn how to build the international highway system, the fuel supply chains, and the global regulatory framework that the engine requires to actually travel any way meaningful.
That analogy is flawless. The university actively wants to recruit graduates from the high school.
It takes founders who have already proven their ability to execute and survive and provides them with the massive institutional depth, the academic partnerships, and the global footprint required to scale that execution into a trillion-dollar sun.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question of timing.
Right.
If this Armstrong paradigm is so obviously necessary for planetary survival, and the economic logic of Solaras is so sound, why wasn't this built a decade ago?
Why is the author pitching this specifically in mid-2026?
Because a decade ago, building a day-one, natively global, deep tech company was logistically and economically impossible.
The text argues that the foundational technologies required to coordinate this kind of ambition have only just matured.
Generative AI and agentic platforms have drastically collapsed the cost of coordinating complex projects across massive geographic distances.
And the maturity of remote work infrastructure means you can finally integrate global talent seamlessly without flying them to a single office.
Plus, modular manufacturing and 3D printing allow for the rapid scaling of physical hardware closer to the end consumer, bypassing fragile global shipping choke points.
And the plummeting cost of putting mass into orbit, driven by companies like SpaceX, means that space industrialization is no longer the exclusive domain of sovereign nation-states.
It is genuinely accessible to private enterprise.
All the technological puzzle pieces are finally on the table. The friction of distance has been neutralized.
Day one global native moonshots are no longer science fiction. They are a logistical reality waiting for an architect.
The launch window is wide open.
And the capital markets recognize it. There is immense private wealth and public will desperately searching for scalable solutions to climate adaptation, energy abundance, and healthcare infrastructure.
The tailwinds for the Solara era have never been stronger.
So what does this all mean? Let's pull all of this together. We have covered an immense amount of conceptual ground exploring this manifesto by Paramendra Kumar Bhagat.
We started by auditing the sheer undeniable success of the Y Combinator machine. The thousands of companies, the mastery of the venture capital power law, the creation of modern software unicorns.
But we also exposed the ceiling of the Columbus model. We saw why the era of serendipitous discovery, the romantic notion of getting lost and bumping into a billion-dollar app, is structurally incapable of solving planetary scale problems.
And we explored the transition to the Neil Armstrong era. The absolute necessity of engineering trillion-dollar Solaras backward from a massive, unmovable destination.
We shattered the media myth of the 20-something dorm room founder, proving with hard data that the true architects of this new era are seasoned veterans in their 40s who actually understand the grinding complexities of global supply chains and regulations.
We redefined marketing from a soft science into a mandatory day-one engineering discipline required to achieve escape velocity.
We analyzed the audacious pitch to merge 140 fragmented AI tools into a single agentic platform.
And finally, we walked through the blueprint for the Accelerator City, the global university designed to foster this new generation of builders.
We are living through a fundamental shift in the geometry of ambition. We are moving from the business of building apps to the business of building entirely new realities.
The frontier of human progress has shifted. The low-hanging fruit of the digital world has been picked.
We are no longer trying to find a slightly faster trade route to India. We are looking up, engineering for the moon, and preparing to build the infrastructure of the next century.
Which is really inspiring when you think about it.
It is. Which brings me to the final thought I want to leave you, our listener, with today.
The big question.
Exactly. Look at the biggest problem you are trying to solve in your own work or life right now. Are you treating it like a Columbus expedition, hoping you bump into a solution by moving fast? Or are you treating it like an Apollo mission, engineered backward from the exact destination you want to reach?
The launch window for the Solara era is open. What are you engineering for escape velocity?
Think about what that means for the future of innovation. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking past the hype, keep interrogating the data, and we will catch you next time.